Hi, Passionators. How are you? It's Saturday. Happy weekend, everybody. Glad you're having a good time. I know I am. Out here making a little vitamin D. So while I'm out here doing that, I thought I'd stop by and talk to you guys about the subject du jour tonight about why relationships seem so hard so often. Primarily because, well, if you look at the internet, there are a lot of reasons, right? It's what we talk about more often than anything else, almost. And with good reason, because so many things keep coming back. There's there's always the hot button issues that get people talking, and I'm really not interested in that as much as I'm interested in getting down to what all of that really means. There is a common thread that runs through all of it. You know, the letdown, the disappointment, the infidelity, the money problems, the health problems, the job problems, the all of that. You know, all of those things come down to there's a common thread running through all of that. And it typically happens when we're seeking to make the relationships in the first place. But also, what typically happens is those same things get carried over into the relationship. So whether it's a marriage, it's a committed relationship, or it's just a long-term relationship of another kind, the same things that bring people together are the things they depend on to keep together, right? So as I'm talking about how this gets blown off track at the beginning, understand that it also applies even after you're in a relationship. So it is not something that goes away. Okay. So that's the one impression I definitely don't want to leave you with. It's not going anywhere. If it's there at the beginning, chances are it's going to stay there. You may add some things as the relationship goes on, but typically you don't take things away. That's not how it usually works in a relationship, right? You start out one way and then you add stuff as you go along, both good and bad. You add positive and negative as you go along, particularly if you invest years, right? Because you also have to factor in the changes that you go through individually and as a couple, your changes in priorities and what's important to you and all that good stuff, which comes back to the common thread that makes relationships seem to be so hard. Here's the way I put it. Too many of us create relationships that feed our greeds and starve our needs. We make relationships that feed our greeds and starve our needs. What do I mean by that? I mean the things that drive us together, that bring us together, that attract us to each other, are primarily ego-based. Whatever feeds our ego is what gets us attracted to each other in the first place, right? Whatever we expect, we are deserving of. Whatever we think we want, whatever we have a desire for, is what we go after. It's what attracts us to each other initially. And for a while, it's enough to keep us together just because of the greed factor, because it's what we want the way we want it. And that's why people invest so much effort and energy into making themselves into whatever they think their mate is interested in, whatever they think their mate wants or desires. And that's why so many of us meet representatives first. Too many of us are focused on being impressive rather than being authentic. I'm going to get into that a little bit further a little later. But that's where the focus is. We're trying to be impressive. We even use that word when we talk about new relationships, especially in new relationships. We are trying to be impressive. We want to make sure that that person is over the moon excited about us. Right? That's the point. That's the ritual. That's the mating dance we do. We are basically still just mammals. We just have a higher functional capacity mentally than other animals. That's really about the only thing that separates us from the rest of the animals that still live primarily by their instincts. But we haven't outgrown everything. We haven't shed all of those practices. And so we have rituals that we go through when we're attracted. And we enhance whatever it is we believe is most attractive because we want to be impressive. We want to make sure that whoever the object of our desire is notices us and notices us in a good way. You want them to notice you because they want to be with you. And most of the time, only with you. That's the goal. You kind of in the back of your mind figure that, especially once you pass 30, once you pass 30 or 40 years old, they have a history, but you're trying to wipe all that out. You're trying to give them amnesia about their past. Or if they do remember their past, it's going to pale in comparison to what you're bringing for this round of their life. So whatever that is, you're trying to outdo it or you're trying to wipe it out altogether. That's the impressive factor. That's the ego. That's the greed. That's where relationships get made. And oftentimes it's also where they get broken. Because a lot of those things, although they look good and they feel good to us and we like it, we enjoy it, that's the fun part, right? That's the fun part. Dopamine is off the charts at this point. The oxytocin is kicked in. Norepinephrine is your new best friend. Those are all just bonding hormones. I'll just put it that way. Those are all the things that get fired off that make us feel like addicted to each other, that makes us crave each other, that makes us want and desire each other. A lot of that is anatomical. Most of us don't recognize or realize that, but a lot of that is anatomical. There is actually something going on in our brains that is firing off chemicals that make us feel that way. So that the emotion isn't always coming just from how we feel. A lot of it is triggered anatomically. And because it's triggered anatomically, that's why a lot of it wears off. And you have that magical OMG moment when you realize you really don't have that much in common with this person that had you totally captivated a day ago, a week ago, a year ago, or worst case, before the wedding. They had you totally captivated. And then you sobered up. Now, I'm not talking about drugs or drinking. I'm talking about the dopamine wore off. The oxytocin went away. And now your brain is functioning like it normally functions. See, intoxication is intoxication precisely because it's such a big departure from what we do normally. That's what makes it feel so good. That's where the intensity comes from. because it's such a big departure from what we do normally, right? We were not built or designed to live in that state of heightened intensity long term. We're not. But we build our relationships with that expectation. We go into relationships expecting that intensity to stay the same way for the same reasons forever, or for however long we stay together, whichever way we're defining forever this time, right? That's what we expect. And that's why when that feeling goes away, we get the OMG, I made a mistake, I'm with the wrong person. That is how we think about it, even though it's not necessarily accurate. Now, true enough, it could be that case. That could be the case. You very well could be with somebody who isn't compatible for you. In fact, it's most likely that you're with somebody who's not compatible with you. That's a hard one for a lot of people. But the truth is that most of the people that you are attracted to are entirely incompatible to share your life with you. The great majority of them. Like, the great majority. When I say the great majority, I mean out of the, you start dating, let's go round numbers, right? You start dating when you're 20, and let's say you get married when you're 30, right? You date one person a year. These are just examples, people. Stay with me. You date one person a year for those 10 years until you find the one you actually want to marry, right? You only get married to one of them, but you were attracted to all of them. At one time, there was something about all of them that made you want to be with them. There was something about all of them that made you crave and desire them. There was something about all of them that attracted you, but you only married one of them. That means 9 of them didn't make the cut. Because most people that you are attracted to are not compatible to share your life with you. I really like this comment. Yes, this is why it's critically important to exercise jurisprudence about who you share your energy, body, mind, and spirit with. I couldn't agree more. Because when you build a relationship that feeds your greeds and starves your needs, when you get to that OMG moment, it's always bad news, right? Because that's where you realize you messed up. That's where you realize you are with somebody who isn't compatible with you. But now you've made this energetic investment. You have twisted your energy up with this person. Perhaps even sexually, repeatedly over an expanded period of time. In which case, each time you come together, you get more entangled. And the more entangled you get, the harder it is to get out. Even once you have your OMG, I really don't need to be here moment. Sometimes, many times, a lot of people don't like this idea, but it actually works very well. Most of the time, you don't even know if you actually like somebody until after the orgasm. I'll wait. Does that mean you necessarily have to have sex with somebody before you figure out whether or not you really like them? Not necessarily. But, but, doing something to release the dopamine is a good idea. Doing something else that gives you a very similar kind of high, that brings you the intensity that you can get in other ways besides an orgasm. Anything that raises your intensity, that raises the feeling of I like this, that raises your excitement and arousal, that may not necessarily be sexual. Or it could be something like masturbation, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. It could be something like exercise. It could be something like yoga. It could be something like kickboxing. It could be parasailing. It could something that gets you intensely focused emotionally. Something that heightens your emotionality. If you find something else like that and you get the release that comes with that, if you can look at that same person and still believe that they are a compatible fit for you, then you may actually have something to work with. At least you have a good start, because you have a sober start, and you don't have a start that is driven by your dopamine. You don't have a start that's driven by intoxication. You don't have a start that's based on the fact that you compromised, that your mental capacity was compromised because you were under the influence of your own arousal. Arousal is a hell of a drug. Make no mistake about it. That intoxication that's often described when people talk about their feelings of being attracted, of being in love, of being romanced, of being the object, the singular focus of someone's intimate attention. Though the words that they often use to describe that also describe intoxication for a reason. Because they know their reasoning has been compromised at that point. That's why that is not the time for you to start trying to be rational, because rational has left the building. You can't wait until you're in a situation like that to start trying to set boundaries. It'll come back to bite you every time. Every time. If you don't set your boundaries when you're sober, they will not ever get set. Because every time you try to set them after that, they'll get pushed, and they'll keep getting pushed. And you will resent it every time. You'll resent your partner for pushing you. And it's not your partner's fault. It's yours. It's yours for not establishing the boundaries while you were sober. It's yours for not sticking to the boundaries when you knew they were what was best for you. It's yours. Nobody is responsible for guarding your heart except you. That is not your mate's job. That is your job. It is not your mate's job to build boundaries around your soul. It is not your mate's job to protect your spirit. It is your mate's job to be your mate. That's it. That's all. They are supposed to show up and authentically be who they are. Now, if they're pretending, that's another conversation. But that's why I said before, you have to stop trying to be impressive and be authentic. That is the only way you give people an opportunity to fall in love with who you actually are instead of who you're not. You can't give anybody the expectation that you are anything other than what you are willing to continue to do. I'll say that again. You can't give people the expectation that you are anything other than what you are willing to continue to do. This is not the place for you to start getting all in your feelings about what you think you want and what you know you deserve and all of that. Be careful asking for what you deserve, because you might just get it. Your relationship isn't going to be built on what you deserve. It's going to be built on what you do. It's not even going to be built on how you feel. It's going to be built on what you do. What you do and how you and your partner interpret what you do. What meaning the two of you assign to what you do. That's what's going to either build your relationship up or tear it apart. You won't need anybody coming in from outside to do it for you. You will do it on your own. When you build a relationship that feeds your greeds and starves your needs, your relationship will be very thin. It will be light. It will be weak in the areas that you really need, in the foundational things like honesty, like trust, like care, consideration, consistency, communication. Those kinds of things, those things that keep people with you when it all falls apart, those are the things that do that. Not the big button, a smile, and not the fat wallet. It's the care, the consideration that you have for your partner's presence in your life and how you choose to show that. Show it, not feel it, not talk about it, not know it, not assume that your partner knows it, not assume that you know what it is for your partner. But what you do about it and what that means to your partner. Have you even checked to find out what matters to them? Or did you come in with a set agenda because you already knew, you know what men need, you know what women want? So that's what you made it your business to be. But you never asked. You never asked. You never asked, what does love look like to you? What would you need to see from me in order to believe that I love you? Simple question. It really is a very simple question. But I could count on my fingers the number of people that I know who actually asked it in any form. And that's just personally. So the people that you see after double-digit numbers of years who are still together and smiling about it, who are teammates and dream mates instead of cellmates and hellmates, they've talked about that. And they talk about it regularly because they care. We spend so much time and effort trying to find ways not to care, trying to find ways not to show that they matter to us. We tie ourselves into all kinds of emotional pretzels trying not to look like this relationship is too important to us, whatever that means. Trying to shrink our hearts so we don't give too much love. Trying to protect ourselves so we don't get too hurt. Trying to care but not care too much so that if they walk away it won't hurt too bad. And then we wonder, we get resentful. We think it's unfair that we don't have the love we say we deserve. That kind of love isn't cheap. And we keep trying to bargain our way into it and break our way out because we feed our greeds and we starve our needs. We won't be honest. We won't be vulnerable. We won't be open. That's a need. But we starve that. We starve that in service to our ego, in service to what we want, in service to our emotions. We starve our needs. But we build entire relationships feeding our greeds. And then we wonder why they fall apart. We wonder why the relationship statistics are as dismal as they are. They are because we made them that way. We created that. The statistics aren't doing anything but reporting what's actually happening. So just like we made it, we can unmake it. But we have to make a decision to do it. We just have to be willing to care. If we could start there, it is amazing what could happen if we just start there. If we actually cared about the people that we were in bed with a few minutes ago. If we got more from them than just what we thought we wanted from them, and actually cared about what they might need, about what they might want, and see what we could do about making that happen. That is, after all, the agreement that you get into when you get into a relationship to start with, is to be that for each other. Where before you got into the relationship, you were doing all that stuff for yourself. And you will still have to do much of that for yourself. But the good thing about being in a relationship is you get to share it. You don't get to relinquish it. You don't get to give it up. You don't get to make your mate entirely responsible for everything concerning what's required for you to be happy. That's what you don't get to do. The primary responsibility is still yours. But you get to share it when you're in a relationship. You get to see it through another person's eyes. Once you've communicated what you require, you get to see what that looks like for them. And you get to experience that. That's the fun. That's the good part. They may see it in a way that you never thought of. And you might decide you like it that way. And it becomes one of the fun things, one of the good things, one of the connecting things that you share with them. And then you build on that. And you do it again. Rinse and repeat. Rinse and repeat. Rinse and repeat. Every day, rinse and repeat. Just make an effort to show that you care. And to show why you care. That's very important. Yeah, people need to know what it is that matters to you. They need to know why it matters to you. So make it known why it matters. When you decide to be caring, take the time to communicate why it even matters to you to care about them. You would be amazed at what that can do with the simplest gesture. Simple. You don't have to rehang the universe to do this. You know what matters to your mate. And if you don't, this would be a very good time to ask. It would be a good time to ask. And if you think you know, ask anyway. How about that? And then shut up and listen. You may just learn something. Check in. Because if you don't check in, you may one day wake up to the very rude realization that your mate has checked out. Cannot hold a relationship together alone. You didn't create it alone, and you can't maintain it alone. This is a joint effort. It will have to be. At least in order to be the healthy, happy, loving, lasting, juicy, delicious relationship that makes you smile when you think about it. That's what it's going to have to be. If that's the way you want it, then you have to be willing to invest everything. None of that 50-50 business, because that never worked anyway. There isn't anywhere else in the world you can invest 50% and expect 100% return. But that is what we do in our relationships, and we feel justified doing it. Relationships are 100-100 proposition. You are either all in or you are not in. It really is that simple. And you trying to cut a side deal to do all that other madness that we create in the name of, well, I just want the good stuff. I really don't want any of that other stuff. I just want what I want. And I don't want what I don't want. So if I have to manipulate my way into, or connive my way into, or tantrum my way in, bully my way in, control my way in, whatever, you may find somebody that allows you to do that to them. You just might. And at the end of the day, you still don't have what you wanted. Because until that person voluntarily, willingly, enthusiastically shares themselves with you, you don't have them. And they don't have you either. So while you're busy trying to be the best and the baddest and the one who cares the least, you are still no closer to what you said you wanted in the first place. In fact, you are even farther away. Stop building relationships that feed your greeds. You have to get your emotions and your ego under control, because if they are guiding your ship, you are about to crash. That's not what they're meant to do. Your he-motions and your she-motions, they need to take a back seat to what you know is best for you and for your relationship. And make no mistake, you cannot do what's best for your relationship and do what's not best for you at the same time. Martyrdom doesn't work. You can't be a relationship martyr and expect to get the kind of love you say you want. That's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. If you're willing to be honest, that's where it all starts. You have to be honest with you. Are you willing to do that? Are you willing to be honest with you about what it is you require in a relationship? Because until you get there, there's nowhere else for you to go. Get there first. Get clear about what it is you know you have to have. And get clear about what your deal breakers are. Because in a healthy relationship, you have the freedom and the ability to walk away at any time, even after you get married. And if you aren't willing to do that, You have just gotten yourself into an entanglement instead of a relationship. And you are serving a sentence. You are a prisoner. You are not a partner anymore. And you don't get partner benefits as a prisoner. Partners don't stay because they've been coerced into it. They stay because they choose to. They stay because there is nowhere else in the world that they would rather be. They stay because they know they can leave at any moment. But they genuinely don't want to do that. They stay because they know that you bring a measure of happiness to their lives that they can't have without you, and they don't want to be without it. Until you get there, everything else is a lie. It's a lie to you, it's a lie to your mate, and it's a lie to everybody watching you. It is a lie to the love legacy that you're going to leave behind for everyone who stopped to watch you. And oh, by the way, a lot of those people you don't even know are watching. Just saying. Your love legacy isn't just for you. It's not just for your children. It's for everybody who's watching you. And many of them you don't know are watching you. Leave a love legacy worth leaving. Build a love destiny worth living. Put a smile back on your heart again. But you can't do that until you get honest, until you get real, until you get authentic instead of impressive, until you stop building a relationship that feeds your greeds and starves your needs. Start feeding your needs, and your greeds will take care of themselves. When you start feeding your needs, you would be surprised how much of what you want shows up by default. When you just take care of what you need, get what you need, and much of what you want will happen by default. But we keep doing this thing in reverse order and expecting premium results. And that's not what's happening, in case you haven't noticed. And by the way, you don't get points for longevity. That whole deal about practice makes perfect. Practice makes permanent. But just because you've been doing something a long time doesn't mean you've been doing it well. It just means you've been doing it repeatedly. Want to last long term, you're going to have to do more than repeat yourself. Because if you keep repeating something that's not working, it's not going to magically start working just because you repeated it. Doing it long doesn't necessarily mean you're not doing it wrong. Check in with what you're doing and stop repeating what isn't working. Stop repeating what you've been doing just because you've been doing it. Your past doesn't have to be your future. Your best could very well still be in front of you. How about that? How about that? How about your best love still hasn't even happened yet? The best love you will ever know in your life is still ahead of you. But only if you make it that way. I hope this was valuable. I hope it was useful. I appreciate you coming by, interrupting your weekend to spend a few minutes with me. Please continue to comment. I'll definitely be back to comment, and share the video with your friends. I'm trying to reach people who might need to know, and I need your help to do it, because I don't know everybody. And you all know a lot of people that I don't. And oh, by the way, stop by my Facebook page every now and then and talk back to me, because I'll definitely be talking to you. Thank you, Sonia. I really appreciate hearing that. It matters to me a lot. It's really the only reason why I keep showing up. So thank you. And have a great weekend. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday. Have some fun. Spread some love. Hug somebody. Get your 20 seconds in. There's science behind the 20 seconds. I didn't just make that up. We get at least 20 seconds. And just watch what happens. I think you'll really be surprised at how much your life and your love can change just by showing people that you care. Just by showing them. It's simplest ways. Thanks again for coming by. And I will talk to you again soon. If there's anything that you'd like me to talk about, feel free to private message me, and I'll do my best to get it on a video for you, okay? Thanks again for showing up. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. I'm hugging you. I know you can't feel it, but I'm hugging you. Thanks again. Bye-bye.